Like every Adobe application, Illustrator also offers a lot of customization to the interface and its settings. In this video, I'm going to show you my favorite setup of the panels on the right, and also a few custom keyboard shortcuts that I recommend usually to everyone to work with. These changes to the default settings can make you much more efficient whenever you work in Illustrator. So first and foremost, let's see how we can make changes to the panels. All the panels, when you first open up Illustrator, will be here on the right side. So this is the panel area. All of these panels are docked, but you can make them floating. The way you do that is by selecting one of these panels and dragging that tab out, which detaches them from the dock on the right, and now it became a floating panel. If you double click on the name or tab of a panel, you can minimize it, and then clicking on it again can maximize it. You can also change the size of almost all panels, so you can make them bigger or smaller, and you will always find additional settings for panels, like here in the panel menu, which is always going to be here on the top right corner. And in case of swatches panel, you can see all these options. Like I can switch to small thumbnail view, or I can switch all the way up to large thumbnail view. If you accidentally close a panel, the place where you can find all the panels is the window menu. So here from actions all the way down to variables, this is all the panels you have in Illustrator. So if I click on swatches, it will open it back up again. So if I want to put it back where it was originally, I can just drag it, and once I get close to the other panels, I will see a highlight showing where I can dock this panel in. I can even dock it next to the libraries panel, or even create an additional new column if I want. So whatever gets highlighted with a blue outline, that's where the panel is going to be docked in. As you can see now, I docked it next to the libraries, but the same way I can put it back here, and this we call iconic panel state, when it becomes just a small little icon, which you can click on to show and click again to hide. Now, if you want to see the names of these panels, even though they are in iconic state, you can still drag the left edge out, and that will reveal their names. Especially in the beginning when you work, this might be useful, just so you can find your way around faster. Instead of the libraries panel, there's two other panels I prefer to see always completely visible. So instead of being in an iconic state, to have them completely expanded. I would just drag the libraries panel here, probably at the top of this list. And instead of having that on the right, I will have the layers panel on the right. We haven't used layers yet, but you will see this will become very important later on. So I'm going to drag the layers thumbnail all the way to the right edge of my screen. When I see the blue line appearing, I let go, and that means now it became a separate column. And I can click on this double arrow to expand it. So now I can see the layers in this document. And the other panel that I use very often and I like to see constantly is the appearance panel. I'm going to drag that all the way at the bottom of the layers panel. When I see again the blue line appearing, I let go, and then I can adjust how much of each of these panels I wish to see. I like to have it roughly half for the appearance and the other half for the layers panel. So this would be a good setup, but I could also open up additional panels that I want to see, like the Pathfinder, for example. If I click on that one, it opens up together with the transform and arrange panels, and I can just drag all of these here at the bottom, or I can decide where I wish to place it. So let's say I'm going to put it there. I can also move the swatches closer to the color panels. Let's say somewhere there. Maybe gradient can also be closer there. And as you can see, it's very easy to quickly customize even the order of these panels. Now on the left side, we have the toolbar, and even the toolbar can be customized. You can see it in one column, all the tools, or two columns. And once again, you use these little double arrows here on the top to switch between these two options. It's good to know that you can dock panels not only on the right side, but also on the left side. And just like panels, you can drag the whole toolbar and make it into a floating set of tools. If you wish, you can even dock it here on the right side. That way you can have everything in one place. But I personally prefer to have this on the left side, where it is by default. And I like to have my tools in 2 columns. This way I also have a little bit better view of the fill and stroke colors, which is also represented here with these 2 icons. I will come back to this later. You can also customize the brightness of the user interface. The easiest way to get to that is by clicking on Preferences here on the top, or you can go through Illustrator, Preferences, and then User Interface. Or if you are a PC user, you will also find it under the Edit menu. Somewhere here you will see Preferences. You can also use Control or Command K to open up Preferences. And within that we have several sets of options, which I will talk about more in detail in the next video. But for now, I'm just going to choose User Interface. And here you have a couple of options which you can change, and you can have the interface much brighter or set it back to the medium dark as it is by default. I prefer to use this medium dark or even the dark one sometimes because it's easier on the eye. When you stare at the computer screen for a whole day, you want slightly darker colors wherever possible, so your eyes won't be affected as much by the brightness of the screen. And last but not least, you can also customize keyboard shortcuts for every function that you have in Illustrator. If you go into any of the menus, you will see shortcuts next to each of the commands. And these are the default shortcuts, but under Edit, Keyboard Shortcuts, you can customize them. So if I click on that, I will find all the tools and their shortcuts, but I can also choose menu commands. And one of the things I always change in Adobe products is undo redo to function 1 and function 2 keys. That's just one of the preferences that I like to change, especially because of Photoshop. There it is a little bit tricky to go back and forth with the default settings. Of course, if you prefer to use Command Z and Command Shift Z or Control Z, Control Shift Z, which is the default settings in Illustrator, you're more than welcome to do that. I just prefer to use these commands. So if you want to do the same, you can just select them and set it up. You have to just press function 1 for undo and function 2 for redo and save it as your own custom setting. If you are looking for a certain command that you wish to change, you can also just type it in up there. So let's say it is the pixel preview that you want to change. You just type that in and you will find the shortcut for that, which by default is Command Option Y or Control Alt Y on PC. And that's again something you can very quickly change by just clicking on it. If I just press F3, that quickly can be assigned to that option. I'm not going to do this. I just wanted to show you that it's possible. I'm just going to cancel out of this. And it's also good to know that once you update the user interface and set it up the way you wish to work with it, it might be worth saving that as a custom workspace. And the way you can do that is by clicking on the workspace selector or switcher up here. And it will probably be called Essentials because that is the default workspace. But if you want, you can save your workspace. I'm going to click on New Workspace and I can type in, yes, I'm a designer, for example, click OK, and that's what's going to come up here. So whenever I choose another one, let's say Layout, that is another default setup of panels that ships with Illustrator, I can say that, or I can go back to Essentials, which I can even reset because this will remember the way I customized it. But if I want, I can reset Essentials, which will go back to the default settings where we see a big libraries panel in Creative Cloud version, or you will just see this column of iconic panels in previous versions. And just as easily, I can always go back to my custom settings. And the good thing is that if I mess up something and maybe lose some panels from here, I can always reset this state of my workspace by just simply choosing Reset. So it will always put it back to the way it was saved. Using these workspaces can save a lot of time of tidying up your user interface. if someone messes it up for you, or you can also have different workspaces for different workflows. Due to the fact that there's so many different panels, every user might need different sets of them visible and in different layout. The way I set it up, showing the layers and appearance, is probably the most common way that designers would use Illustrator, but feel free to play around with the panels and save your own workspaces.